Scotty Montgomery staying. David Shaw is here. Brett Whitefield is here today, too.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey now, what's going on, everybody? It's a Friday edition of Locked On Lions, a snowy Friday, January 31st into Saturday, February 1st. Matt Derry with you, Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thanks for joining us and finding us wherever you get your podcast. That includes on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Shout out to our everydayers who are out there watching and listening daily right here on Locked On Lions. We appreciate all of you. Major chaos, major corruption, major craziness going on at Flagstar Bank, where whether you're in the Birmingham one, you're at the Troy branch, they're loving us on Locked On Lions. Rachel Pritchard created quite a stir after her shout yesterday on the podcast. Others, we've discovered other everydayers thanks to Rachel. David Brierton, Anthony Abdullah, who's buddies with Kristen Shaoni. Got to give a shout out to Tommy Salvati, Joey Giacona. Those are my guys. Going to see them soon. And Matthew Overway hit us up on LinkedIn. Thanks for being everydayers, everybody, and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. We'll have a call of the day, a couple next week. If you want to be our call of the day, go to speakpipe.com/Dairy podcast page. Also got to give a special birthday shout out. Happy second birthday coming up to my buddy, Lena Choice. We love you, Lena. All right, Locked On Lions, brought to you today by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Brett Whitefield going to be our guest today. If you go to fantasypoints.com, that is Brett's website. He writes all this stuff up about analytics, numbers, who he likes, doesn't like at the Senior Bowl, draft grades. If you're a geek for NFL information, numbers, and opinions, fantasypoints.com. Brett Whitefield is going to join us momentarily on the show. He was in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl. What about edge rushers for the Lions? What about defensive tackles? What about receivers? They have to replace Tim Patrick or add another receiver. Brett's got it all from down at the Senior Bowl. All right, couple of quick notes before we get to Brett. Number one, biggest good news tidbit of the day today is that Scotty Montgomery, Lions running backs coach, who's done a fantastic job with that unit, interviewed for the Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator position. Scotty Montgomery will be staying in Detroit. And now the minute, of course, that I do this story, I forget the gentleman's name that is going to be the OC in Dallas. Comes from the Arizona Cardinals, blah, blah, blah. Clayton Adams, offensive line coach for the Cardinals, got the gig moments ago, according to Ian Rappaport. So he is going to Dallas. Scotty Montgomery staying in Detroit. That is good news. No surprise, Tanner Engstrand reportedly will be the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets, leaving the Lions. But of course, the Lions have just replaced Engstrand with their passing game coordinator hire yesterday of none other than former Stanford head coach, Ravens wide receivers coach years ago, David Shaw. I absolutely love this move. Love this move. David Shaw was a very successful head coach at Stanford. He has interviewed for multiple NFL head coaching jobs. Still a young guy in his early 50s and is coming to the Lions. He spent last year in Denver in their front office as kind of an executive, but he's going to get back into coaching and be the Lions pass game coordinator. Look, Tanner Engstrand did a fantastic job, is a very, very good young coach, and you knew he was going to end up with Aaron Glenn most likely with the Jets as their OC. That's a big break for him. But to replace Tanner Engstrand with David Shaw, who won at Stanford. Think about that. And some people go, well, he just inherited Jim Harbaugh's players. No, he was Jim Harbaugh's OC. When Harbaugh left Stanford to go to the NFL and the Niners, David Shaw took over. And remember, I think it was either year 4 or year 5. David Shaw took Stanford to the Rose Bowl. They won it, and they finished like 3rd in the country. Stanford. That's a tough place to win. That's an academic. That's like the Harvard of the West. That is an unbelievable academic school. not the greatest facilities, small stadium, small arena for basketball. David Shaw, and at the end, David Shaw got fired, and he was there a long time, 10, 11 years, and the record, it kind of caught up with him, okay? But he's a damn good coach, a great offensive mind, has spent time in the NFL with the Ravens and the Saints, and just an awesome hire. I absolutely love this. So thumbs up to Dan Campbell. I know I kind of dogged the John Morton hiring a little bit as OC, but David Shaw for pass game coordinator is a great move. Not a good move, a great move. I think that he's going to be a real asset for that offense. So I'm excited about that. All right. Brett Whitefield is going to join us coming up next. As soon as I find it and cue it up, we're going to talk to Brett all about the Lions, the Senior Bowl. A lot of very interesting and intriguing draft prospects at the Senior Bowl. We talked about Mike Green the other day from Marshall, who's an absolute beast. I want to get into that with Brett. Some other edge rushers, defensive tackles, a lot of edge rushers, a lot of D tackles in this draft. Lions are picking 28th in the first round. So we'll see what Brett has to say about all these prospects. We'll do that with him coming up next, right here on a Friday, a snowy Friday. Locked On Lions. And the broadcast today brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Attending NFL playoff games, as we know, is an unforgettable experience. It's so unforgettable that I'm being choked up. That I got choked up. Oh my goodness. It brings fans together. All right. You thinking about maybe, just maybe, you want to go down for the big game in New Orleans in a couple weeks? You can get tickets on Gametime. Wings are playing well, red hot, win over Edmonton. Cade Cunningham is an all-star with the Pistons. You want tickets for that? You can get them at Gametime. There's nothing better than the excitement of going to a game or taking the family or whatever and get reasonably priced tickets and get them where you know you're going to sit, the view from your seat, everything else. It's all set up for you on the Gametime app. Gametime has a new feature as well called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I recently used Gametime Picks to get some tickets for Indiana and Michigan basketball next weekend down in Bloomington, taking my son. Should be a lot of fun. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee give me peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Senior Bowl practices are in the books. The game will hit the airwaves tomorrow. Brett Whitefield, our good friend from Fantasy Points. Go to fantasypoints.com and subscribe and get all the info on everything when it comes to data, analytics, the players. He is our guest today on Locked On Lions. B, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, man. Long time. We haven't talked since the fall, I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah.
I never remember who I have on when I have them on. How you been? I know you're battling the throat. You're back from Mobile. How was the Senior Bowl?
Senior Bowl is awesome as always. Jim Nagy does such a good job getting the right players down there. He's the best there is when it comes to that. So it's year after year. I'm always amazed that every guy I have no complaints. Every guy I want to see was there. So here we go. All
right. So what stood out? You get there, you've been there every year, you break these players down, but what's the biggest takeaways you got on the airplane coming home?
Yeah, biggest takeaway is I think where the class is strong, where I thought the class was strong going in proved to be strong this week, and that was defensive line is loaded, offensive line's pretty good, tight end is just stacked, running back is just stacked, and then receiver on the other hand is a little light in the pants, quarterback a little light in the pants. So I think that's the biggest takeaway is this draft class is about what I thought it was.
It's interesting. And I want to get to the receivers in a second because that's kind of your bread and butter, and you've been great at evaluating them. You were the first person we watched Ladd McConkey play in college, but you were the first one to go, hey, listen, he's going to go a lot higher than people think and play well his first year. You mentioned before, you mentioned D linemen. Obviously the Lions, that could be a sweet spot for them. How do you like what, where Brad Holmes is in terms of, all right, here's where the roster is now, but here's who we can add. And is there a good crop for him, you think?
Yeah, especially if you're looking at the Senior Bowl guys. There were, 4 edge guys there I think the Lions fans should be familiar with. I'll start with Mike Green, the Marshall kid.
Love him. Yeah.
Dude, what a stud. And the thing I love most about him, man, is his best tape was against his best level of competition. I know he played at Marshall. There's concerns with the level of comp, but you turn on the Ohio State tape, he dominated them. Go down, just Senior Bowl this week. I mean, all the offensive linemen there are the best in the country, and he dominated. Josiah Stewart's another one. And Green and Stewart are similar size-wise, but they play entirely different. Green is this more, elite twitchy. He's got a really nice pass rush arsenal. Where Josiah Stewart's more of a stocky build, plays with that speed to power, awesome in the run game. He reminds me a little bit of Jared Verse, not quite that big, but reminds me a little bit of Jared Verse. He can play with his hand in the dirt or from a 2-point stance. And then Princely Uman Malin from Ole Miss. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Fantastic athlete. Ideal length and build. So, the Lions have options at the back end of that first round. I did say 4. Shamar Stewart, the other kid from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
He might be the most athletically gifted player in this entire draft. Now, I happen to think he's going to go, when it's all said and done, he'll be a top 10 guy because I think he'll blow out the combine. But for right now, at least, people are saying, later first round. I guess I don't see that, though.
Who was the poor kid that Mike Green knocked over? That video circulated. I've never seen that before, where a 320-pound tackle just gets bowled over by, and Mike Green's not a big guy, a huge guy, right? I mean, that was nuts.
Yeah, Green's 250. I forget the tackle. It may have been Connerly from Oregon. Green he's only 250 pounds, and so. And what's cool is on tape, he didn't show a ton of speed to power. That really wasn't part of his game, but at Mobile he did. So I love when guys add to the story. That's one of the big things about the Senior Bowl is we're not going to throw away 4 years of tape, just for 3 days of practice, but we're looking for, hey, can guys, continue the story? Can they show us something they didn't get to show us in 4 years of college football?
Brett Whitefield with us, Fantasy Points, fantasypoints.com. You know the Lions as well as anybody, you're local here. Could you see a scenario where you go, look, if Brad Holmes at 28, if Mike Green's still there, run the card up, like Mike Green on one side, Hutchinson on the other? Would you go nuts for that?
I would love that, and especially getting to play behind Hutch and Z for a year. Both those guys kind of do what he does, just in slightly different ways. So, I mean, that would be just, I think, a dream come true for them. He's probably my favorite target for them at the end of the first round right now.
Walter Nolan is a guy that I know had a good week at the Senior Bowl, defensive tackle from Ole Miss. What about that crop of DTs? And again, another position where Fonzarike leaves. Will they pay Reeder to come back? I know he's contracted now, but maybe that's a cap casualty. What about defensive tackle?
Yeah, I wrote down Nolan as a guy to talk to you about for sure. His tape is awesome. I really like his tape at Ole Miss, and then at the Senior Bowl, he was just a one-man show. The thing with Nolan is he's not as refined of a player as they tend to prefer at defensive tackle. Hand usage is all a complete mixed bag, but he's a really, really good athlete at that position. He can kind of play, 3 technique. He can kick outside like Levi if he has to. He's got really good length though. I think the upside with him is tremendous. So I don't think it's a guy you maybe get a ton out of right away. Are you familiar with Braden Fisk, who just lit up? Of course. Yes. Yeah. He's got a little of that to his game where it's extreme penetrator, but then once you get in the backfield, you're not quite sure what he's going to do. Closing speed's really good, but I'm curious to see where the Lions go with the D-line this year too, because they don't typically prioritize that penetration style, and that's 100% Walter Nolan's game. It's quick penetration, get into the backfield, mess stuff up. The problem with that is you need to have linebackers and other D linemen that are aware that's happening and can adjust their rush lanes and get off blocks. So I'm hopeful that with Casey Rogers coming over for Tampa Bay, they do play a little bit more attacking style, but we'll see.
Well, look, if the Lions can do what the Rams did last year, and obviously Brad is a less Snead guy, and get their own version of Fisk and Verse, I don't think Lions fans will be upset about that.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, dream come true.
Give me some other names. Who else on that D line in terms of tackles impressed you this week?
Yeah, I didn't really love the D tackles this week. The kid from Utah, Tufunga. He for a run stopper, like you're talking about Reader possibly not being around long term. That'd be a great spot there. Is I would say when that team was in 11 on 11s, every single run play he was in the backfield making something happen, driving a guard back into the running back. So I think they're probably pretty good though. The Lions, like I think edge is a way bigger priority to me than interior guys.
Brett Whitefield with us. Anybody else? We talked a little bit about D-line, but Jack Kaiser, the linebacker, every time I looked up, people were putting out on social media interceptions from that kid. Did you expect him to be that good this week?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's awesome. He is really, really good. And then he absolutely lit it up. The linebackers in general this week were awesome. The South Carolina kid was dominant. The Florida kid was dominant. And then Kaiser was just everywhere, literally everywhere. I mean, even in the one-on-ones and one-on-one drills and pass coverage, they're designed for the defender to lose. Everyone knows that. Whether you're covering a tight end or a running back or receiver, like those drills do not favor the defensive players at all. And he held his own. Very few reps he got beat on. So, I mean, I would say probably a first-round pick at this point.
Wow. That's pretty good. And the Lions, you figure linebacker, they're pretty good where they are right now in terms of their depth and obviously they just got to get guys healthy after what happened last year, right?
Yeah, Jack and Alex obviously great, and then Malcolm returning healthy, hopefully, and that's good depth. They even have JRM as the special teams kind of ace and coverage guy. Yeah, they're fine there.
I have more with Brad Whitefield coming up next. I want to ask about the offensive side and also the Lions' approach and how he kind of looks at what Brad and the folks in the front office are thinking. We'll do that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. But first, Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. The big game is almost here. There's no better way to make it even more exciting than with our friends at PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. It's simple, and you guys know this. You pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Come on, that's a no-brainer. Pair that with one more correct pick, and you are cashing out. All right, lots to look at in terms of yardage, whether it's Travis Kelce, whether it's A.J. Brown, all of that and more at PrizePicks. Check out the promos tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners, big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Brett Whitefield back from the Senior Bowl joins us from Fantasy Points. Go to fantasypoints.com. Read all up on all the stuff that Brett saw down there, and we're talking to him now. What about the quarterbacks? It's funny. I don't know how big of a Milroe fan you were. You were high on McCarthy a year ago when we talked. Milroe, it's weird. Some people go, oh, this is the guy the Steelers must take. This is the guy and other people go, he's trash. Like, where are you on the Alabama QB?
Yeah, I don't want to call any prospect trash.
No, but right.
Milroe's just not for me. I think a year ago, Matt, when we talked QBs, one of the reasons I love JJ over a guy like Caleb Williams is JJ just did all those little quarterback things well. He's great from the pocket, doesn't take unnecessary sacks, really good decision maker. Milroe is not any of those things, just like Caleb. And the problem is he doesn't have the arm Caleb has. So I don't see this guy as being a first-round pick to me. Like, if Jalen Hurts couldn't even get in the first round with his skill set, I have a hard time believing Jalen Milroe is going to go in the first round. The first day of practice, he started the day 0 for 11. And that is extremely hard to do in one-on-one drills, Matt, because like I said, these drills are designed for the offense to win. Really tough. I'm not sure quite what it is. The throwing mechanics are a little weird, but he is just not a very accurate thrower. The decision-making isn't there. He takes a ton of unnecessary sacks, can't really run an offense the way the plays are designed to run. So sure, there's going to be some offensive coordinators that feel like they can work with it with the rushing floor. That athletic ability does give you a certain floor with your offense. I think we've seen that with guys like Justin Fields and even Jalen Hurts early in his career. But man, I don't see it. I don't think he's I would say even a good prospect, let alone an elite prospect.
You got a lot more work to do before the draft. I know you're watching a lot of tape and doing your write-ups, but right now, a year ago, like I said, you loved JJ and you put your neck out on the line. Obviously, we couldn't find out what happened because McCarthy got hurt, but what about in terms of quarterback rankings right now, if you had to put a few together, what do you think?
Yeah, Shadur Sanders is my number one. Easy, clear number one to me. I nicknamed him Shaduro because he reminds me of Joe Burrow. So,
all right.
Yeah, very similar players. And then Jackson Dart is my clear number two. And it's really kind of a big gap after that for me. I do have Cam Ward third, but I think there's a significant difference between him and Jackson Dart. For all the reasons I love JJ too, Shadur Sanders and Jackson Dart, these are disciplined players from the pocket that can win all three levels of the field from the pocket. They run the plays the way they're designed to be run. All of that stuff matters a lot. I think you saw that too. There's a few quarterbacks that, like CJ Stroud's regression in Houston, for example. The biggest issue is just taking unnecessary sacks. 3rd and 3, take a sack, get knocked out of field goal range. That happened like 7 times this year. Caleb Williams, we saw the problems he had in Chicago. Sam Darnold in Minnesota, even when statistically he was performing well, he still led the NFL in turnover-worthy throws. He was like 3rd in the amount of sacks that we attributed to him. So those types of players just aren't – they're not getting it done right now. So I think I'm avoiding them. I love Shadur and I love Jackson Dart.
Wow. So if you're Tennessee, I'm going a place I didn't even think I was going to go, but let's have fun with it. If you're Tennessee and Cleveland, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm getting Shadur and Jackson Dart.
You are? Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you would take Dart at 2 over like Travis Hunter if you're the Browns.
That's tough. So, yeah, Jackson Dart is about the level of prospect I had like Bo Nix last year. So this is a weaker QB class. So 2 might be a little early for that. We did see Bo go 12 and have a great season. I think Dart's a slightly more talented player than Bo Nix. But I do think, to your point, maybe you go Hunter at 2 and then maybe Dart should go somewhere between 5 and 10. Like 6 to the Giants feels like a good spot for him. Or no, they're not picking 6. Sorry. The Raiders are picking 6.
Right. So many teams that need quarterbacks. It's going to be very, very interesting to see who, pays up and does all of that. By the way, this draft, there was talk that, well, maybe this is the year Brad mortgages some picks to go and trade for Max Crosby or do something that Brad doesn't normally do because this draft isn't as strong. Do you agree about the assessment of this first round?
This draft doesn't have the star caliber players that past drafts have, but the depth I think is actually really good. So point being, I think at pick 28, they're going to get a similar player they would have got last year at pick 28. I don't think there's that big of a drop off. It's a little lacking at the top of the draft is all. So that said, I mean, they are kind of in I don't want to call it a win now window. I think the window is pretty wide because of the youth of the team. But if Brad wanted to go get somebody like a Max Crosby, I'm not going to fault him for that. They have cap space too. So
you're a receiver guy. You said earlier that this might not be the best receiver crop, but what stood out down in Mobile for you on that spot?
Yeah, the Lions, I think it's a sneaky need for the Lions, man. I don't know how you feel about receiver, but
Tim Patrick is a free agent. So
yeah, Tim Patrick's a free agent. I feel like we've had a kind of a revolving door at that X receiver spot. And then J-Mo's breakout was great, but at a certain point, you got to question the decision making off the field. Like, are they going to invest long term in that and buy in to J-Mo long term? I'm not sure. I can't give you the answer, but I know that I want to prepare just in case. So yeah. I gave you a list. I'm giving you a list of 6 guys that Senior Bowl guys. Well, one didn't show up, but and it's like a good, better, best scenario. First round, second round, third round guys. In the first round, if they want to go receiver there, I got Alec Ayumanor from Stanford. He is absolutely my dude this year. He fills that X role great. He's big, rocked up frame, is great route runner, great after the catch, kind of fits what they do. He's got that dog in him too. He's gonna go out there and block his tail off for you. So Alec Ayumanor in the first round. I also have Jalen Knoll as a potential late first round, early second round kind of guy. He's a little redundant to Amon-Ra, but I don't think you can have too many Amon-Ra's on your team because they just get open. And I think Goff thrives with players like that who are always going to be in the right spot at the right time. Second round, Jack Besh, I should say. Are you familiar with this kid, Matt? The TCU kid?
I have not seen him a ton, obviously a few games, but I guess he was good. Him and somebody said him and Kyle Williams were standouts to them this week, right?
Had a good week too. Besh, though, he is so at TCU he played like this big power slot role because he's like 6'2", 215. And at the Senior Bowl, they moved him to the outside to play the X. And the big question was like, does he have the gas to go win on the outside, stack up DBs, get in their blind spot, and win vertically? And he answered the bell like resoundingly. Like it was kind of similar to what Ladd did last year, Ladd McConkey, where it's like, we know you can win from the slot. Can you also win on the outside? And Besh did that. And he is another guy who's just, he screams line. He has that dog mentality. He's, no block, no rock. He even said that to me in an interview. So I love that kid. He'd be a great fit for the Lions in the second round.
What about all the changes with the coaching staff, and obviously Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn gone? Anything that stood out, surprised you in terms of who they brought in and how you think they'll do? To me, there's still so much talent here that yes, you don't like that Ben and Aaron are gone, but how do you view it?
Yeah, I think the AG one stings worse to me than the Ben one. AG is just such a leader of men. When you talk culture and the reset, it is Dan Campbell, but AG was an extension of Dan Campbell in a lot of ways, and reshaping the culture of the team. I think he was a huge part of that. So losing him, that hurts. And I think he'll be a better head coach than he was DC even. So hopefully he has a ton of success in New York. Ben Johnson, obviously that stinks that he left. It stinks that he went to division rival. I'm not super worried about it though, because of the talent you mentioned, because it's Dan Campbell's offense. He designed the offense. It's his show. I think he was way more involved in play calling than anyone cared to realize or mention in the media. And then bringing John Morton over to kind of handle the play calling duties, it just made sense, right? And I hope they keep Tanner Eggstrain. It sounds like he's going to leave for New York. It's possible that's even official. I just landed from Mobile, so I may have missed it.
No, not yet.
Yeah. But yeah, returning Mark Brunell is big. Returning Hank Fraley is big. So I'm really not too worried. And I love the Casey Rogers hire. I love promoting Kelvin Shepard too. I think that's always been the plan. I think when Dan Campbell brought over AG as the DC, he knew that he'd be leaving for a head coach job eventually. I think they've had that succession plan in place for a while now. So I think Shep's ready for the job, and I'm kind of excited to see what the new bloodlines do here.
Owner and CEO of Fantasy Points, Brett Whitefield with us, sore throat and all. The guy's a gamer. Yeah, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, he looks like an offensive lineman. He looks like he's ready to line up and smash somebody. Are you or no? It's Friday. You're taking it easy.
Yeah, I still compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so I'm ready to smash someone.
Brett, love your insights, man. Everybody get to fantasypoints.com, sign up and get Brett's stuff. He's on it all the time. We'll talk to you before the draft, my friend.
Sounds good, Matt. Thank you so much.
You got it. There he is. Brett Whitefield with us from Fantasy Points. We're back again Monday. Everybody have a great weekend. Locked on Lions.